For the past few weeks, many of you have been working on piecing your kite blocks. Now it is time to put everything together. So today's video is going to focus on designing the layout using Electric Quilt. I will also include instructions on piecing that layout on my blog. I'm going to start by opening EQ7 from my desktop. And I'll close the tip of the day. For this one, I'm going to select Let's Go Fly a Kite and click OK. And it opens to the project sketchbook. So I will close that. We're going to go ahead and get started on the layout for the Let's Go Fly a Kite quilt. For this one, I'm actually going to use a vertical strip quilt. And it's not one, it's probably not one of the more common layouts, so I thought I would cover a number of aspects of that in today's video. So to get started, I'm going to go to Quilt, New Quilt, and I'm going to pick the one called a vertical strip quilt. And it opens with 4 strips. You can add, subtract, adjust as necessary. But if I go to the Layout tab, that is where I will actually adjust and modify the strips. So I'm going to just start with the first one, and I'm going to do a row of 5 blocks. And so I want to select the strip style pieced blocks, and my blocks are 5-inch wide, so I'm going to put in a 5 there. And I know that I'm going to have 5 of them. So I'm going to change the number of blocks to 5. Now I need to do a little bit of math. Because I know what the total length of the block, and that is 7, I'm going to need to take that 7 times 5 to come up with my length, and I will change that length to 35. So that's my first strip. Now, for the second one, I also decided I wanted a width of 5. And for this one, I'm going to use the style half drop blocks. And what I decided is I wanted to alternate a bit, and I also have to play a little bit with that longer kite that I also drafted. So for this one, I'm going to select 4 for the number of blocks. And notice that it has a half block at the top and the bottom. Now, I'm going to delete borders 3 and 4, and I'm going to go back to border 1 and click on the clone, the selected strip, and I want to add it, and it will add it to the end. And I'm now going to select strip number 2, and again with the clone still checked on, I want to add that. And now I'll pick the third one and I'll add that. So I have very easily basically replicated the strips that I like. Now I'm going to go to layer 1, and I'm going to go ahead and put my kite blocks in. And the vast majority of them were, this simple kite here. And we're going to leave this one here alone for a minute. So that's generally the layout. I do have some of those different blocks in place, and I'm sort of actually looking at my master quilt, and obviously you're going to maybe have some different different blocks in your quilt. So Oh, and then I had some plain ones here, so I had a couple of those also as well here. So I will finish recoloring this off screen, but that will give you at least an idea for the layout. Now I want to talk a little bit about the block, that 5 by 10 inch block. And if I scroll, you can see that this one is just a little bit different size. It doesn't fit nicely into the layout. So what I'm going to do instead is actually put this on layer 2. And when I do that, there's a couple of things. First is I do want to snap my block position to my grid. I'm also going to click on my quilt work table options. I'm going to click on snap settings, and I'm going to look at those grid settings. So I want to show the grid. I want to snap the block position to the grid. And for this one, I'm going to have the grid snap every 1 inch. And I think that will give me enough points, but not too many here. So I'm going to close that. And I'm going to take this block and drag it on the workspace. Now, I realized that when this came in, I think I drafted it at a larger size. So I'm going to use the adjust tool, pick up the block, and first of all, I'm just going to adjust it to 5 by 10, which is actually how I pieced it. And now I'm going to snap it in place. And I'm realizing it doesn't quite fit, probably because my snap points actually are at 1/2 inch. So the way I can fix that is to go back to my more quilt work table options, and I'm going to go to the snap settings, and I'm just going to go ahead and change that to the 1/2 inch. And again, if it still didn't work, I could actually turn off my snap settings, and I have done that on occasion on some of my quilts as well. So I think that looks pretty good. I will zoom back out. And now I'm going to, again, use the adjust tool, pick that up. I'm just going to do a Control-C and Control-V to copy it. And I'm going to put it in place down at the bottom here. Now I just need to put some plain blocks in to fill in the space there. And to add a plain block, I can go to the Set Block tool, and when the sketchbook blocks opens, there's a little flyout box in the right corner there. Click on that and click on Add Plain Block. Now what I can do is drag that on my quilt surface, and I'm just going to, now we're going to measure the spaces for our setting rectangles. So I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to use my tape measure, and if I measure across, it's 5 inches, no surprise there. And if I measure the height, it is measuring 1.3, and it rounds to the 1/4 inch. So actually I think it's 1.25 that I want to use. And so I'm going to fit to work table. I'm going to use the adjust tool, select my block, and I'm going to resize that to 5 by 1.25. And I'm going to drag that into place. And I will zoom in and make sure it fits, and that does look good. And so now I'm going to go over and I'm going to measure the height of the other space. And so that is between 3.7 and 3.8, and so I'll use 3.75. I will pick up that first block, do a Control-C, Control-V, and I'm going to change that size to 3.75, and you can see that it does fit perfectly. So I will fit to work table, And now I'm going to Control-C, Control-V to get a copy and fill in down below there. And I will copy and paste the small one as well. And I will zoom in and use my adjust key and just make sure that they're all exactly where I want them to be. And they are. So now I can use my paintbrush tool and I can go ahead and paint these setting triangles. Here is the center of the quilt recolored. At this point, we are ready to put together the layout. And next week, I will cover how to add a pieced border and how to adjust the inner border so that the pieced border will fit appropriately. I hope you enjoyed this video. For additional tips and tutorials, please subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.onpointquilter.com. Also, check out this week's blog for instructions in how to piece this quilt.